What's going on, man? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today is exciting, man. It's officially rookie draft season. We're in late January at this point. And on my channel, I usually do fantasy football videos. We're going to be focusing on Dynasty and rookie draft stuff and rookies and NFL mock drafts. It's all draft season from now to the combine, but the combine's not fucking here, so like pro days and bullshitted laser fucking 40 times. We all know that someone's gonna go out here and run a 3.9 on the fucking 40s. Between now and NFL draft season, we're gonna have rookie content, dynasty content, anything of that sort. Today, we're gonna just do a nice little laid back, way too early 2021 SUPERFLEX rookie draft mock draft with landing spots. That's what we're working with for today. Now, these aren't my official rankings. This is just kind of something fun to do where we see where the players land, where they get drafted to, because we're going to take somebody else's mock draft, take those landing spots in draft capital, and then do a mock draft with that pool of players into a top 12. Now, I'm going to be doing videos on my rankings, like top fives, guys I really like, but if you want the real stuff, on my Discord very soon, I'm going to be having my dynasty rankings, my rookie rankings by position, SUPERFLEX, all that. It's all going to be in the Discord, so make sure you go down below, join the Discord. We got some guys in there. There's going to be March Madness brackets when that comes around. All my rankings will be on the Discord. Subscriber leagues will be on the Discord. So if you want to get involved in this community and if you want to use my rankings for your teams, make sure you go down below and join the Discord. Now, before I ramble on anymore, let's go.
Hey man, where the fuck is Mario Judah?
For today's video, we're going to be using Benjamin Solak's mock draft. This is on the Draft Network. It's a pretty sweet website. Just go check it out if you guys want to. They have plenty of mock drafts. They have all that kind of content. But for today, we're just going to be using it for these players and their landing spots. So we'll just go over the first few picks, and then I'll give you the gist of it in a second. We got Trevor Lawrence at 1, Fields at 2, Wilson at 3 with the 49ers trading up, and so on. After you look through this whole mock draft, I just put it in a Google Drive real quick so we don't have to go through the whole fucking thing. And I'll go over the position groups real quick. We got Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars, first overall. Second overall was Justin Fields to the Jets. Third overall is Zach Wilson to the Niners. Trey Lance at 8th overall to the Bears. The Bears trade up to get him. The Niners trade up to get Wilson. Mac Jones at the 241, but that's not really important for the top 12 of a SUPERFLEX rookie draft. Then we have Najee Harris in the second round, 34th overall to the Jets. ETN, 36th overall to the Falcons. Javonte Williams, 44th overall to the Dolphins. Kind of sucks that none of them went in the first round, but to be honest with you, I don't really expect any of these running backs to go in the first round unless I don't know, there's not even a combine this year, so I'm really not sure how they're going to be able to get that hype up there. I think if anyone can do it, it'd be Najee Harris. Then we have the wide receivers. We have Jamar Chase going 6th overall to the Eagles. Waddle going 7th overall to the Lions, which seems pretty high for him, to be honest, but I expect Kenny Golladay to be gone, and if Stafford's still there, they're going to be pressed for wide receivers. So why not they go Jaylen Waddle? I think more realistically, they probably go Damonte Smith here, but I just wanted to use a non-bias mock draft from another network. So this is what we're going with. Then we have Damonte Smith at 12 to the Dolphins, Terrace Marshall Jr. to the Colts, Rashod Bateman at 23rd to the Jets, Kadarius Toney to the Jaguars at 25th, Rondell Moore to the Patriots, which is pretty interesting. Amon-Ra St. Brown to Washington is pretty interesting. Nico Collins to the Packers. Give him someone beside Devontae Adams, because most likely there's not really anybody there to compete. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I guess. And then you have Elijah Moore to the Chiefs, which would be dope. I'm telling you guys, Elijah Moore, I'm not going to spoil it. He might be in this top 12. This is going to be a guy that will probably have his own video in the near future. This is a guy that I'm super, super high on for this rookie season. And guys like Elijah Moore are going to be the most fun videos that I have. I'm going to do individual player breakdowns. I'm going to be doing the rookie rankings, like top 5 rookie wide receivers, top 5 guys I really like, my guys. Let me know if you guys have any other ideas for what you guys want to see in terms of rookie rankings besides just the ones I'm going to put on Discord. Let me know in the comments down below. And then we have 3 tight ends going the first 2 rounds, which is pretty sick. We have Kyle Pitts at 15th overall to the Patriots, Pat Freiermuth to the Panthers at the 40th overall pick, which kind of sucks for any of you guys out there that have Ian Thomas, but he hasn't really panned out yet. If Freiermuth goes to the Panthers, that'd be pretty sweet. And then we have Brevin Jordan to the Jaguars at 246, which bumps up Trevor Lawrence a little bit, even though he's already as inflated as it's going to get. Which now brings us to the tier list. I gathered the top 15 that I think are relevant in this top 12. We have Rashod Bateman. From left to right, we have Rashod Bateman, Devonta Smith, Travis Etienne's looking a little bit goofy in his pick, Justin Fields, Jamar Chase, Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts, Rondell Moore, Trevor Lawrence, Terrace Marshall, Kadarius Toney, Trey Lance, Jaylen Waddle, and Zach Wilson as the bottom 15. We're going to go S tier is going to be my tier 1 prospects, first overall, second overall, however long that goes, and then so on and so forth. And with your boy on the clock, Roger Goodell calling me in. First overall, we're going Trevor Lawrence. And this is SuperFlex PPR draft. Trevor Lawrence, he's just easily the pick. It's no brainer. He's the golden boy. He's been the 101 since he came out the womb. Ever since the doctors looked him in the face and he started breathing and they cut the umbilical cord, all they whispered to each other was 101. They probably almost wanted to name him 101. He is the golden boy, the prince who was promised, the next Andrew Luck. Whether all these things are true, there's so much hype around him. He's going to go first overall. He is the guy that has to go here. He's also in an interesting scheme as a guy that has underrated rushing upside. He's 6'6", has that, I wouldn't say Cam Newton, Tim Tebow type build because he isn't that mobile. I don't know why I said mobile, but he has decent legs. You know, he's probably going to run somewhere in the, I honestly think that he probably has similar legs to a Justin Herbert, which is perfect for fantasy football. Couple that with Urban Meyer is going to run like a run first base spread, which has a lot of read option in it. And then you also have DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, Brevin Jordan, new tight end, James Robinson in the backfield. This is going to be a really nice offense with a growing offensive line. So he's coming into a perfect scenario. I'm kind of excited to see what Urban Meyer is going to do, even though I don't have super high hopes, but I'm excited to see what that all looks like. Trevor Lawrence, the real deal. He is one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time. So you can't take that away from him. In a Superflex draft, you have to go with him number one. Here's where it gets really tough between positions. Now, in Superflex, you want that QB, but there's a lot of positional scarcity going on at QB, but these running backs are juicy between Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, and I would be super tempted to go with either of them, but I think if you're in Superflex, and I think if neither of these running backs go in the first round, that I'm going to pull the trigger on Justin Fields. Justin Fields is a mobile quarterback. He's going to get you that rushing upside. I think that he has Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson in his range of outcomes on the higher end of things. You know, he's going to be a very mobile guy. He's going to scramble a lot. He's going to make plays. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He had a great season last year where he had, I think, 40 touchdowns passing, like 10 touchdowns rushing, under 5 interceptions. And he just looks like a stud. And on top of that, the Jets, don't call me biased. I'm a Jets fan. But in this mock, they're turning the corner. We got Robert Saleh. We got LaFleur calling the plays. Then you had Rashod Bateman on the outside with Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder in the slot. I think that they're probably going to go after a Juju with Godwin, Allen Robinson, Galladay. He's going to have plenty of weapons on the outside. He's going to have Herndon on the inside. Then you had Bateman. Then you get Najee Harris in the backfield with LaFleur's offense. I think Justin Fields is in a perfect spot right now. The Jets are on the up and up. Let me just say they're trending upwards, the Jets right now. So you want to hitch your wagon to Justin Fields. He's going to have plenty of rushing upside, like I said. And I think that on his upside, he's going to be a Deshaun Watson type guy. And I think at the low end of things, I think he's probably somewhere between Miami Dolphins Ryan Tannehill and Tennessee Titans Ryan Tannehill. Now after that is where things get juicy. This is where the quarterbacks are fun to talk about, but the running backs and wide receivers is where it gets juicy. And my tier one is in no order. This is all landing spot, draft capital base. It's going to be Etienne, Najee Harris, Jamar Chase. That is my big three in terms of position guys after these two quarterbacks. It's all going to come down to landing spot, and for me, Etienne being on the Falcons and Najee Harris going to the Jets makes this really close, but I lean Etienne on the Falcons. I think it's a little bit more juicy of a spot, and I'm personally on the bandwagon of Etienne over Najee Harris until Najee Harris shows me that he is a freak athlete or something of that. Because if he goes out there and he runs a 4.6 or worse, then I'm not as interested as I was before. But Najee Harris, we'll talk about him in a second when we pick him. But Travis Etienne, let's give him a little spotlight, all right? He has one of the prettiest, most shiny resumes out there. He's the all-time ACC touchdown leader, and he's the all-time rushing leader in the ACC and the 2-time ACC Player of the Year. He's a legit prospect, not only a prospect, but one of the greatest college running backs of all time. He has that championship with Trevor Lawrence. He went there for 4 years. He set all the records. Despite playing for 4 years, he still had a career 7.2 yards per carry and has tallied 85 receptions in the last season. So he's a guy that is explosive. He's a threat to take at the house on any carry, and he's a great running back out of the backfield. Now, I say all that to say that sounds like the perfect running back. I think he's going to run in the 4.4s. He's about 5'10", and what really matters for me with the Etienne profile is he needs to weigh enough. Where Najee Harris needs to run fast enough, Etienne needs to weigh enough. I'm a little bit scared that he might weigh in at 195, sub 200, but if he can come in at that 205, 210 range at 5'10", and look like an all-purpose skill set back, to me, he looks a lot like a DeAndre Swift, and I think that he has a lot of Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Charles in him. I think he checks all the boxes, and Atlanta is a pretty situation. The only running back they have on contract right now is going to be Ito Smith. Their head coach is gone. They bring in Arthur Smith, which I don't love at head coach, but he's a run-first guy. Their offensive line's growing. They spent 2 first-rounders in 2019 on that offensive line. This is just an offense that's ascending, whether you have Matt Ryan or they bring in another guy, and you have receivers on the outside like Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, that don't allow the defense to just stack the box. This is going to be a team that's also, they're picking at fourth overall in this draft. So they might be behind in the game script. That might allow Etienne to catch more passes. I think that if he comes into this backfield and all they have to compete with him is Ito Smith, he's a smash spot at the 103 in Superflex leagues. And then that brings us to Najee Harris. It would be hard for me not make him the RB1 because I'm a Jets fan, but I promise you guys I will never be biased towards the Jets in any of my takes. But here we're going to go Najee Harris at the 104. Najee Harris is a special prospect. I really wasn't that high on him last year, but I love this fit that he goes to the Jets. And like I said, he's in my tier 1 of running backs. He looks explosive. He looks a part of a 3-down back. He's like 6'3", 230. He looks like a modern version of Derrick Henry. Like if Derrick Henry shrunk a little bit and he had hands, he would be Najee Harris. He looks like a stud. He doesn't have that super breakaway speed or explosiveness that Etienne has. He kind of looks like a Matt Forte. He looks like a guy that has a 3-down work skill set. He looks like a workhorse. I just love his profile. And on the Jets, I think that he'd get a lot of bad rep for going onto this Jets spot. But I think the Jets are one of the more desirable locations. If they really revamp the offense like they did in this mock draft, if they get a Justin Fields or they get a Rashod Bateman on the outside, now they have Saleh, they have LaFleur. LaFleur's going to dial up those Shanahan type running plays, running schemes, and all that type of shit. That's a little bit weird in this scenario. I honestly envision the Jets wanting to go like a running back committee, kind of like what the Niners do, what the Rams do, what the Packers do. And the best case scenario, he gets a workload like Akers, or he gets a workload like Aaron Jones does, where he's at the top of that committee and he's just the lead back that can catch passes and can do it all. But it's going to get a little bit annoying. You guys might see a couple of carries to LaMichael Pirine here and there. You might see a couple of carries to, I'm not sure who else they would grab. Maybe they might even bring in a Jamal Williams that's in free agency this year. But Najee Harris, 104, super solid pick. He has size. We just got to see the speed. If he runs something better than a 4.6, he might be my RB1, and it's going to be tough to get me off of it, to be honest. Now, the last player we got in the S tier is honestly only because he's a wide receiver. I have a thing where, to me, I think you have to prioritize running back over wide receiver in these drafts. Even Jamar Chase, who looks like a stud, it's almost always better to get a running back. You get instant returns. I know last year, it's tough to look at last year and say that because you had Justin Jefferson break out, CD broke out, and all those guys returned value instantly, but it doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it looks like N'Keal Harry. Sometimes it looks like Mike Williams. Sometimes it looks like Corey Davis. Sometimes it looks like John Ross. They're a lot more volatile, and the running backs they get carries early. You can sell on that value. They return value faster. So I just like wide receivers first. If there's ever a wide receiver that would get me off of these running backs, especially when there are 2 running backs in the second round, and if Jamar Chase goes 7th overall, I'd have to really think about it because Jamar Chase is going to be the 105 in this draft. And he's one of my favorite wide receiver prospects of all time. He broke out at age 19. He's a generational receiver prospect up there for guys like Julio Jones, AJ Green for me. Pretty much one of the greatest rookie wide receivers of all time, Justin Jefferson. And I wouldn't say he played second fiddle to Jamar Chase, but he wasn't the guy. Jamar Chase had more receiving yards, more touchdowns. Justin Jefferson had more receptions out of the slot. So it was like a 1A, 1B, but the fact that Jamar Chase was 1 year younger and he commanded as much, if not more volume than Justin Jefferson, that says a lot to me. He's also a big play receiver. He's a guy that averaged more than 20 yards a catch that season. He just has an insane resume. He put up 9 catches for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Natty versus AJ Terrell, who's on Clemson. Then you have 7 catches for 127 and 2 against CJ Henderson. Then you have 6 for 140 and 1 against Trevon Diggs and Patrick Surtain on Alabama. These are all first round talents besides Trevon Diggs. Trevon Diggs is going to go second round, but those are 3 first round corners and 1 second round corner I just named to you, and he smoked all of them. You could say that he's a product of that Joe Burrow offense, but you could have said the same thing about Justin Jefferson last year. That offense was legit. That offense was prolific, and Jamar Chase was at the head of it. So that's enough for me to think that he is one of the greatest wide receiver prospects of all time. And the thing is here is that if he's going to get 6 overall draft capital, he's going to go to the Eagles, 6 overall. It's so tough to pass up on that because that means that they're investing all of their assets into it. And I kind of like the direction the team's heading in. They just got the OC from the Colts. Jalen Hurts looks nice. I like Jalen Reagor to sort of be his 1B, Christian Kirk to D-Hop kind of thing. And then you have tight end, you have Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. That offense is really, it's building somewhere. And don't forget, there was a lot of injuries last year, but the Eagles offense, when healthy, the Eagles offensive line, when healthy, is one of the best in the league. Now, moving on for that, we're going to go into the A tier. One of the guys that I've already made an individual player video for that I love is Zach Wilson, man. Zach Wilson, it's tough for me because here, I think that given who's on the board, it's got to be Zach Wilson or it's got to be Trey Lance in a Superflex league. In a vacuum, Trey Lance for me is better than Zach Wilson in fantasy because Trey Lance, he has all kinds of rushing upside that we'll get into when we pick him, but Zach Wilson doesn't have that same exact rushing upside. But going 3rd overall to the Niners is a dream scenario for Zach Wilson. The 49ers have pretty much everything. They have everything besides the quarterback. They have a fine O-line. They have a run a run-first team, which sort of takes the pressure off of him. Then he has weapons. He has Kittle. He has Ayuk. He has Deebo Samuel. If all those guys can stay healthy, he probably comes into one of the best situations in the whole entire league in terms of being a quarterback. Then you have a defense. They can rely on the defense. It's a great defense. This is a team that promotes winning. I think Shanahan can really scheme him into this offense. I really would love the fit. And if he goes 3rd overall and Trey Lance goes 8th overall, I'm personally more inclined to take Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's got a little bit of underrated rushing upside. He averaged 7 rushes a game during his 30-game career at BYU. And that would have been 4th in the league this year in terms of rushes per game between Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. I don't expect him to maintain that 7 rushes per game, but even around 5 rushes per game is where Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson sit. So if he can average 4 to 5 rushes a game, we're looking at a guy that can be one of those mobile quarterbacks I talked about in my last video, where you want those Konami code guys, the guys that are gonna run the ball, get the rushes, get the yards, the touchdowns, because as a quarterback, you're obviously earning more points in those situations. After Zach Wilson, we're going to go Trey Lance because he is the Konami code quarterback. He ran for 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns as a sophomore. To put into perspective, Kyler Murray ran for 1,012 when he was a junior. So I know that we're playing for North Dakota State. We're playing against guys that probably won't make it to the NFL. You know, maybe you'll get a 7th rounder on a team here and there in that conference. But he still ran for more yards, more touchdowns than Kyler Murray, who is a legit playmaker up there with Lamar Jackson. It goes Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. And then I think once Trey Lance gets in there, aside from like the gadget guys like a Taysom Hill or Robert Griffin III or Marcus Mariota, I think Trey Lance is that next guy that has somewhere between Kyler Murray, Cam Newton type upside as a runner. This is a guy that I think is going to slip in a lot of drafts, and he's somebody I want to be way higher than consensus on. And I think that he would be a 6th overall guy, as long as he doesn't get this situation with the Bears. Now, let's look at Trey Lance as a prospect real quick. Like I said, the rushing upside is there. He threw for 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's super safe with the ball, and it really just comes down to draft capital. If he's a top 5 pick and he goes to a decent team, then I'm with it. I'm on the Trey Lance train. But if the Bears trade up to 8 and they grab Zach Wilson, I assume that Allen Robinson walks in this scenario. I assume they gave up a lot of assets to build around him with. He comes into an offense with Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller on the other side. Maybe Jimmy Graham. I doubt that he stays a decent O-line at best, and David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen in the backfield. That's a tough situation to come into. Not to mention that not a big fan of the GM, Ryan Pace, and not a big fan of the coach, Matt Nagy. It's a tough scheme fit for me. So, or not scheme fit, but just team fit. But if Trey Lance, if he was to even leapfrog and he goes 2nd overall to my Jets, I think Trey Lance you can make the case for as 2nd overall. He's a guy that is a legit quarterback prospect. I really think that you have Trevor Lawrence up in his own tier. Then I think the 2nd tier is probably Fields, Lance, Wilson for me in terms of fantasy upside. Maybe even Lance over Fields. It's that close. Everybody's going to sleep on Trey Lance because he hasn't played in a year. He went to North Dakota State, but he is a really good player, and he's a guy that's going to be fantasy relevant for a long time because of his rushing upside. Then when we got that next guy, I think that this guy, if he runs well at the combine, could be in the conversation for that S tier up there with Najee Harris and ETN. And I think some guys have him in that top 3. But I'm not there yet. I have to see him run first. But I'm going to go Javonte Williams. And as Ray GQ says, that boy got a thick-ass neck, bro. Take a peep. Just before you even go on, just take a peep at the boy's neck. He's got a thicker neck than his fucking jawline. According to Ray GQ, that's all you got to look at when it comes to football players. I'm all in. He's got the thick neck. He looks great. I just got to see him run first. Now, like I said, he's super interesting. He's on my radar this season. I like him as in that Najee ETN tier if he can run fast. All I need to see is a 40 time, because to me, I've watched some of his highlights. I watched some of his tape a little bit here and there, he's not even going to run at the combine. I just got to see him run at a pro day. It's so tough without a combine for these running back prospects. I hope that they figure something out for the 40 times, but I need him to run something in the 4.5s because to me, that's a breaker between, I think that he looks like David Montgomery or he could look like Nick Chubb. If he runs in the 4.5s or if he runs in the low 4.5s, he's a Nick Chubb level type guy. He did it all at UNC last year. He looked great, even in the same backfield with Michael Carter. He also falls a little bit here because I haven't seen him run yet, and on top of that, he goes to the Dolphins, which I think is not one of the worst landing spots, but it's not ideal. They have Myles Gaskin, even Salvin Ahmed looked pretty good last year. I'm not saying that those guys are world beaters, but that's a little bit of competition that you're going to come into on day one. I don't want to give that too much hype, but it's just at a certain point we're picking hairs here, or splitting hairs. Then we're going to go Slim Reaper.
It is hot as hell in this funky-ass, hot-ass room I'm in. Is that the Grim Reaper?
Slim Reaper. Heisman winner. Damonte Smith is super polarizing on Twitter right now. If your favorite guy on Twitter is saying that Damonte Smith isn't a top 5 wide receiver in rookie drafts, just unfollow him. I'm telling you, there's a lot of guys out there that are making these cases that Damonte Smith isn't a top 5, top 3 wide receiver because they just want the clicks, they just want the clout. If you don't have him in your top 3 to 5 wide receivers, you're just overthinking it, you're overselling it. It's just you have to understand that Damonte Smith put on one of the craziest seasons of all time against an all-SEC schedule, against an all-Big Power 5 schedule, no cupcake games, and he won a fucking Heisman. There hasn't been a Heisman since the 90s. I honestly thought that I'd never see a wide receiver win the Heisman in my lifetime, and it's sick that he did, and I know that we can't give him too much credit for that, but I also think the two things that are concerns about him are his weight and his lack of early production at Alabama. Now, his lack of early production at Alabama, I can give that a pass, man. He was in the same offense as Jerry Jeudy, fucking Ruggs. You got Jaylen Waddle, Calvin Ridley. That offense, those wide receivers that have been churned out the past 4 years have been absolutely insane. It's insane that Damonte Smith, he was the one that caught the pass from Tua in the national championship game. So he has been that boy since the jump. It's tough to get an opportunity when you're on the same team as a Calvin Ridley and all those guys. He's just tough. Now, he's also skinny. I've heard rumors that he's 170, 175 at like 6 foot 6'1", which is tough. To put it into perspective, Marquise Brown is 175 and he's a really small receiver and he's like 5'9". So that's not the best thing to hear, but I think that if he can fall into that 180, 185, maybe even 190, which I know I'm stretching it with a 190, if he can fall into that range, I think that he'll be fine. You also have to remember the game is getting faster. He proved that he could do it against SEC corners, which this year is pretty stacked, which is Patrick Surtain, or he's going against Patrick Surtain in practice every week, but he did it against, who else do they got? Derek Stingley. He bitches Derek Stingley whenever he plays Derek Stingley. He's got a lot of good tape on these SEC corners. And I think that at a certain point, you have to understand that he can win. He did at Alabama, and he didn't produce at an early age, but the production that he did give was insane. To get a 50% or more, I think he had like 51% college dominator this year, to account for more than 50% of the offense at an Alabama with Najee Harris, with Jaylen Waddle. I know Jaylen Waddle wasn't there for a while, but even then, they have like the John Mechie's of the world. They have all that talent on offense, and he assumed so much of the volume, so much of the production. If you saw him in the national championship game, he was unguardable. He is the real deal, and I know that his size is a problem, but at the 109, I'm not letting him slip farther than this. The late first is the farthest I'm willing to let him slip, because if he gets drafted in the top 15, if a team invests in him, and on top of that, the Dolphins are going to have either Fitz, which is, I would love Fitz for Damonte Smith for a year or two. Then you have Deshaun Watson, which would be great, or you have Tua, who played with him in college. So I think that's another great connection there. So any way the quarterback situation fizzles out, I think that he's in a great spot. And as we go to this next pick, we're going to drop it down one tier. Now, some of you guys might not like that. I know there's some of you guys out there that might have Jaylen Waddle as your wide receiver 1. In my opinion, I kind of like this guy down here, Rashod Bateman. I like Rashod Bateman more than Jaylen Waddle, but if Jaylen Waddle is going to go 7th overall, I have a hard time pushing him down my board, because draft capital matters so much with these wide receivers. If a team invests in them in the top 10, they're going to want to feed them targets. They're going to want them to look good early. I know Ruggs didn't look good, but I knew that Ruggs wasn't that great. But Jaylen Waddle, to me, has a better prospect profile than Ruggs. I know he's never actually officially broken out on Player Profiler's database, because he's never clipped like a 20% college dominator. Which, if you guys don't know what college dominator rating is, it's pretty much just the market share of the total offense and the total yards and touchdowns. So a guy that gets 1,000 yards on a 4,000-yard team is as impressive as a guy getting 2,000 yards on a 8,000-yard passing team. So it just kind of gives context and all that. He never got more than 20% of the market share at Alabama, which is fine, because his first 2 years, he got hurt his third year, but his first 2 years he had to compete with guys like Jeudy, Ruggs, Damonte Smith. You had all kinds of guys he had to compete with. He never could be that alpha, and he would have been that alpha if Damonte Smith declared last year, but even then, Waddle got hurt. His most prolific season was as a freshman. Pretty crazy. He had his most receptions, most yards, and most touchdowns, all that as a freshman. And when you go a step further, this year in the 4 games before he got hurt, he averaged 6 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown in each of those 4 games before he got hurt. And that's alongside Damonte Smith. So he was really ready to come out here, be great, be dominant on Alabama. It just happens that he hurt himself. Now, he has great speed. He's a playmaker. And on top of that, if the Lions grab him at 7th overall, I'm assuming that this is going to be a world where Kenny Golladay is no longer on that team, and they want to bring in a wide receiver for Matthew Stafford or whatever they're running with. But there's not going to be a lot of competition. It's going to be him. It's going to be Hawkinson. It's going to be Swift, which is actually a young, exciting offense. So I like Waddle in that scenario. And now we have 2 picks left. And this one's my guy. This is probably, outside of Elijah Moore, like I was saying earlier, my favorite prospect is going to be Rashod Bateman. And if he went to the Jets, bro, pants would be off. Pants would be off or soaked.
Hey, yo.
Rashod Bateman, I love him. If the Jets take 2 skill position players in the top 50, I would love that as well. I don't expect Joe Douglas to do it, especially bringing in a defensive-minded head coach. But for the sake of the mock draft, a man can only dream. Now, he's one of my favorite prospects in the class. He broke out at 18, competing with Tyler Johnson. He has one of the lowest breakout ages in this class. And on top of that, he was playing alongside Tyler Johnson. I know he only went 5th overall in the draft, but you guys remember Tyler Johnson? He was that boy at Minnesota. He's a guy that he just kind of fell in the draft process. He declined invites to go to the Senior Bowl. He didn't run at the Combine. He had this really nice profile where he broke out early. He was prolific all 4 seasons, and he just flopped. I mean, one thing that his career has so far is a really nice catch in the last playoff game that he had for the Buccaneers, but I think that Tyler Johnson's a great wide receiver. At the very least, he was a great wide receiver in college, and somebody that if I was a GM, I probably would have taken him around where Bryan Edwards went in the 3rd round in an NFL draft. So he competed with that guy, broke out at age 18, and he has an 88th percentile college dominator, and he looks the part of a Justin Jefferson type talent. Now, when I say that, Justin Jefferson was alongside Jamar Chase. Now he's on the other side of that. Rashod Bateman's alongside Tyler Johnson. So Rashod Bateman, he's big, he's fast, he makes plays, he produced early. He's just the prototypical alpha wide receiver. I think he has some Justin Jefferson to his game. I think he has some Allen Robinson to his game. I think that he is a really solid wide receiver. I love him on the outside on the Jets alongside Denzel Mims with somebody in the slot like a Juju or Jamison Crowder. For the last pick at the 112, this is weird for me. And I could see him going way farther up. I love Rondale Moore, another guy I'm going to talk about. Kadarius Toney, not another guy I'm going to talk about. I will never talk about Kadarius Toney. I don't fuck with his profile. Maybe I'll look into it and I'll see what's up with Kadarius Toney. I'm not rocking with it. If you guys look at his breakout age, all that, pretty tough. But when we look at Kyle Pitts, this is the guy. Super weird to have a tight end over somebody as great as Rondale Moore, as a 1st-round wide receiver, Terrace Marshall. But Kyle Pitts is a tight end that was built in a factory. He looks the part of an insane tight end. And I think that, honestly, if you switch him and Damonte Smith and you play Kyle Pitts on the outside in the Alabama offense, weird take, but I think that Kyle Pitts could have been competing for a Heisman. He is that good. He's insane in the red zone. He's insane when you line up on the outside. He could honestly convert to wide receiver. He is a playmaker. He scores fucking touchdowns at Florida. He's been doing it for a couple of years now. And on top of that, if he goes to 15 to the Patriots, Bill Belichick would be having a field day with him. Bill Belichick, we know how those tight ends go. You had Rob Gronkowski, you had Aaron Hernandez, and then while they were playing, they were going crazy. He is the one that gave Rob Gronkowski a 17-touchdown season. Never forget that. He knows how to use these tight ends. He even likes running 2 of them. And I think that by now we know Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene are not the future of the franchise. I think that we would see Pitts on that offense. I know that they got to figure some stuff out with the quarterback, with the wide receivers. It'd be nice that they picked Rondale Moore in this draft. So they have Rondale Moore on the outside, N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, Cam Newton or somebody behind center, and then Kyle Pitts at tight end. I think they'd use him in kind of a Travis Kelce type role where they're going to line him in there. They might even run a screen to the inside, maybe crossing across the middle, maybe even split him out in the slot. I think Bill Belichick would have a lot of fun with Kyle Pitts. Even sometimes they would even line up Rob Gronkowski all the way on the perimeter in the red zone because you get him against a scrawny little cornerback. It's a mismatch every time. So I really love Kyle Pitts on the Patriots. I think that he is a game breaker. And if you had him inside of your top 6, if you had him in A tier or S tier, I wouldn't even fault you. The honorable mentions are going to be Rondale Moore, Terrace Marshall Jr., Kadarius Toney. I honestly only put him up there to troll, and his face picture is hilarious. But if you made it this far, man, I appreciate it. As I said before, make sure you join the Discord. I would love to start some leagues up in there. We can do startup drafts pretty soon. March Madness brackets will be pretty fun. Just to talk in there. I'll also put my stream links in there. I'm going to put my rookie rankings in there, Dynasty rankings. My seasonal rankings will be there in the summer. Like I said, from now until probably June, it's going to be mostly Dynasty rookie draft content when I cover football. Now, as always, if you guys are rocking with me, make sure you get down below, subscribe, leave a like, comment. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.
Hey man, where the fuck is Mario Judah?